All right.
We're taking all the best old school wisdom and blending it with the top new school methods to bring you the optimal coaching strategies.
This is the 80-20 Baseball Podcast with Coach Bo.
Welcome, coaches. This is the 80-20 Baseball Get Together. Coach Bo with you. Fired up this week. We got the 80-20 Baseball Fall Coaching Webinar. The Fall Coaching Webinar. It's going to be Thursday. Check it out. Go to the website, 8020baseball.com. It's right there on the homepage. It would be great if you could make it to it. If you can't, don't worry. You can still get the live recording of it. Either way, it's going to be a good thing. The podcast is obviously a great resource. Podcasts are great. I like podcasts, but there is a limitation to a podcast. You can't visually see some of this stuff. So I'm going to show on the webinar. I'm going to demonstrate. We're going to do some chalk talk. We're going to show and break down how the drill should look and work and things like that. I'm going to show you specific movements, and it's going to be coupled with a Q&A session for you and also follow-up support afterwards via email, etc. So that's going to be awesome. Fall coaching webinar. We are going to build off the fall coaching webinar with a pitching webinar, which is its kind of own little animal, its own little beast, right? And it really needs its own session. So we're going to do pitching. Now, we will talk a little bit about pitching in the 80-20 Baseball Fall Coaching Clinic webinar, but we are going to have our own session in January for pitching. And then we're going to have phase 2 of our coaching clinic in early February. So we got phase 1, fall, phase 2, early February, and we're going to sandwich it in with a pitching clinic, a specific to pitching clinic. We're going to talk mechanics. We're going to talk pitching out of the stretch. I'm going to show you wind up delivery stuff, show you a lot of tricks and tips when it comes to the pitching in January. Speaking of January here on the podcast, I'm lining up a mental game session, a mental game performance and interview with a coach that works on the mental game. So we're going to kick off the year. The goal is to kick off the year. The plan is to kick off 2022 in this podcast, focusing a couple sessions on improving player mental performance. So a couple episodes dedicated to improving player mental performance out there on the old ball field. First things first, this Thursday, a couple days from now, the fall coaching webinar. Go to 80-20 Baseball, sign up, 8020baseball.com. Sign up for that. I will send you the link. So you sign up on the website and then I get the receipt and then I will send you the webinar link. So the 3 topics today, the first 2 are derived from some emails that I've received over the last month or so from coaches. You great listeners, you know who you are. One of you great coaches asked, hey, Coach Bo, could you vet some of these things that are out there in the baseball community? So you're trying to go through me as somebody who can look at it from a place of a lot of experience. And also I try to be very objective and fair. I think we need more of that in our world where we can look at things objectively. So coaches have reached out and said, hey, can you look at this? Can you vet this and that? And so one of the topics or one of the things I want to hit on right now was the J band, the Yeager band. Alan Yeager has been a long time participant in the baseball coaching community. He's well known for long toss, although I don't understand because long toss was around well before any of us were ever even alive, probably even well before our fathers were alive. I mean, long toss is as old as the game of baseball, throwing something far, right? It's probably as old as rocks were getting thrown by human beings. So throwing things a long way is nothing new, but Coach Yeager made it a kind of a brand of his. And anyways, he's actually more well known for some of his mental game. In fact, I love his mental game book, Getting Focused, Staying Focused, A Far Eastern Approach to Sports and Life. It's a great book. I've listened to Coach Yeager talk at the ABCA conference, and I'm a fan of long toss, and I'm a fan of his mental game approach, big fan of his mental game approach. And he has a product out there that's one of the more popular baseball products. It's an elastic tubing band called the J bands, the Yeager bands. Essentially, it's most of you have probably seen this. You've probably even had players on your team or your kid use them. The J bands I'm a big fan of, but one thing I've been very upfront about way back when, I mean, years ago, I'm not a big fan of how they're actually prescribed. Now, I don't think they're going to hurt a player. I'm not saying that. I don't think that at all. I think they're actually, and if I was selling that product, I would actually market it in a completely different way because I think the benefits are actually different and the way to use them is actually different than the main prescribed way in which they're kind of what you get when you order them. And I've ordered sets over the years many a times. I probably ordered like 4 sets over the year. I've gotten 4 sets, whether it was the team I was coaching that program ordered them for everybody and I got upset, or I've ordered them myself. You get some directions and they're laminated. It's real nice. It's a real nice setup. You get these laminated directions, and on there are ways to essentially build muscle strength. A lot of it's based around the shoulder and things like that. But here's where I think they actually work a lot better. The J-bands, I think, are better for the range of motion improvement, the mobility, the flexibility of the shoulder, the lats, and things like that. Now, when I say lats, I mean the latissimus dorsi, kind of those big muscles on the back of your shoulder, upper back. Most of you know what the lats are. If you ever see those guys with those big back, like looks like they have wings on their backs, those are the lats. Some dudes go to the gym and they just want to get those lats really big because they just do a bunch of pull downs and they think that's a cool look. But nonetheless, I'm a big fan of the J-bands. In fact, I would, or at least elastic tubing. There are other options besides the J-bands. I'm a big fan of the elastic tubing because of how you can move it. It's mobile. It kind of goes with the body part. So in this case, really the shoulder, it really helps because it does some things that the player can't do on their own. They can't do with a stationary object, something like a pole or a fence. It allows them to move their shoulder through a larger range of motion, a greater range of motion. And I'm a big fan of having the J-bands for mobility and flexibility. And in fact, they would be, if I was coaching college or pro, definitely high school where the kids are, there's a little more strength and muscle on the frame, I would make it a mandatory part of the post-practice, post-throwing session. So I'm a big fan of the J-bands for that reason. Also, I'm a big fan of the J-bands for helping pitchers keep their front side from flying open, from keeping their glove stable, the front side stable. Now, I know some pitchers, their glove does fly behind them. I've seen, lots of articles and videos of guys talking about this. I've seen pitchers over the years that just really yank kind of their glove a little bit. And at the end of the day, it's better not to have your glove side, if you're a right-handed pitcher, your left arm, get yanked back behind you to the side. Can you get away with it a little bit? Sure. Especially older pitchers, professional pitchers, but youth pitchers, you really want to try to stabilize that front side where the glove isn't getting yanked way back behind the body after the release or even at release. You want to have a stable front side, glove somewhere in front of the body. It could be a little lower, a little to the outside of the frame, a little up. Just, each pitcher is going to be a little different depending on where their arm slot is and things like that. But I think having a little control over that is good. And so you can actually use it for this. And what you do is you hold it with say if you're a right-handed pitcher, the pitcher will hold the band, one of the bands. The bands come with 2 bands, right? But you're just going to hold one of them. You could hold both of them. It doesn't matter. And you could hold them with your left hand, and that's your glove hand. So you don't have your glove on. The pitcher wouldn't have their glove on, and they would hold that, and then they have a ball in their other hand, and they would obviously have it attached to the fence, and they would walk back away from the fence. So it was pretty firm. And so they couldn't pull on it a ton with their left hand. They couldn't pull on it with their left arm a lot. There was a little slack, a little give to kind of move and swivel with that glove upon the throw. And then the pitcher essentially is just throwing into a target into the fence. So I would always like having a little target here. You got to have it a slightly downward angle, and even something as simple as duct tape, a little duct tape taped to the fence, and that's what they're aiming for. And they're repping throws there before they go into the bullpen or after their bullpen session or before the game. And it really works on firming up that front side and not letting that front side get yanked out of control, especially prematurely. So I'm a big fan of the J-bands for mobility, flexibility in the shoulder area. I'm a big fan of using it to firm up that front side. I think it works really well for that. Now, I'm not saying it can't get the shoulder stronger, but the reason I don't like it as the way it's prescribed, and there's a reason. It's not just because there's a very specific reason. It has to do with my kinesiology background and understanding this and been teaching physical education for years and years. The elastic tubing has a inherent flaw in its design when it comes to strength. Here's what happens. The elastic tubing, when you pull on it, does not have the same resistance through the movement. It has a greater resistance at the end of the movement as the tension in the band gets stronger. And at the beginning of whatever movement it is, whatever exercise it is, it's going to have less. I think this is not good. This does not help muscle symmetry. It creates muscle asymmetry through a movement. Not a big fan of that. It would be like using a dumbbell for shoulder press. And at the beginning of the shoulder press, you're using dumbbells. So you have 2 dumbbells and you're doing shoulder press. It would be like starting with with 30-pound dumbbells. Halfway up, even though it's not an exact, halfway, but as you're going up, so say halfway, all of a sudden you would grab 40 or 50-pound dumbbells, and then you'd finish the last quarter or the last third of the shoulder press with 60 or 70-pound dumbbells. That's essentially what you're doing. You wouldn't do that. You would want the same amount of weight from start to finish to have some symmetry throughout. Is this a huge issue? Who knows? Nobody's ever run a study on elastic tubing and the asymmetry development of the muscles and things like that. But it just, to me, it's more of we know this and we know that. So if those two are true, you can put them together and you can deduce that, hey, I don't want a different resistance at the start, in the middle, at the end. And in fact, it actually is a gradual increase, decrease, right? And I'm not a big fan of that. I don't like that. I feel like you're strengthening the end of the movement a lot more than the beginning of the movement. Now you can say, well, if you get really creative, coach, you can work backwards and do some kind of different drill to strengthen the front part. Good luck. Good luck. All right. But now when you're doing mobility and flexibility through the shoulder region, having the max resistance set or whatever resistance or a range of resistance or some malleability in that resistance, that's okay. It doesn't hurt as much because you're not building strength, you're building mobility and you're building range of motion, which is a different thing than muscle strength and muscle endurance. It's different. Usually they go together in a lot of ways, but in this case, it's different. So with the J-band, big fan of them for front side control on your throwers, not just pitchers, but any thrower. Big fan of them on the range of motion topic and idea, the range of motion, the flexibility, mobility of the shoulder region. Really like it. There's a lot of different things you can do. So I would definitely buy them, or at least some type of elastic tubing. I think it's a very good tool for pitchers and any player to have, but definitely pitchers. I think what's happened over the years is you have hundreds and thousands of pitching coaches, and you don't have very many that cross over into the muscle strength field. They're not into the strength and conditioning part of it. I'm a huge fan and studier of strength and conditioning. So that part together, and also going out and doing these and testing these with players, I found that the elastic tubing is not ideal for what it's mainly prescribed for. And you go, well, what would you use, Coach Bo? Again, I'm not just going to say, don't do this unless I'm giving you a reason and other options. I tell people that I work with, I go, hey, don't bring me a problem unless you have a solution or a clear-cut reason why it's a problem and why it's not going to help us get closer to our goal. I would much rather use plyo balls for this. Not the plyo balls where you're throwing them, but plyo balls, 2 pound, 4 pound, or even light dumbbells, things like that. 2 pound dumbbells, 1 pound dumbbells, 4 pound dumbbells. Depends on the kid. You really don't need a lot of weight for the shoulders, especially with like 7, 10U, 12U players. You don't need a lot. 2 pound weighted ball would be more than sufficient in most cases. It's going to depend on the player, of course, and their age and their strength and genetics and things like that. But I would much rather have them go through those range of motions, those movements with a 1 pound, 2 pound, 3 pound plyo ball, something they could just keep in their bag. So if you come to the 80-20 baseball fall coaching clinic, I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about with these plyo balls. I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about, what I'm saying to you to do. And that goes into our next topic, warming up to throw, not throw to warm up. This is something that is seen very regularly at baseball, youth baseball practices, and even some high school practices. In fact, a lot of high school practices, but definitely at the youth practice. Players will warm up and they'll do a lot of they'll jog out to the fence, they'll stretch their legs, they'll do this and that, but they don't really warm up the shoulders and the muscles around the shoulder girdle, the lats, the things that are the forearms, the biceps, the triceps. Really, the main thing is the shoulder area, and it all kind of works together in the throwing motion will get this done. But what happens is players just pick up the baseball and they start playing catch. And the throwing routines usually are not that good, but that's neither here nor there right now. What I'm talking about is actually warming up correctly before you start throwing. You throw after you're warmed up. You warm up to throw, you don't throw to warm up. I've brought this up before, but I keep seeing it. I was out the other day and I watched a team doing their little warm-up thing, and they did a jog and they did some high knees. They did a few things here and they did a couple things in a line, in some lines, and they did their kind of warm-up routine, and they just went to the bucket of balls, grabbed the balls and started throwing. And their arms really their core temperature had warmed up, but their shoulders hadn't been moved around very much. Now, at 6U or 10U, you can get away with this for the most part, although I don't recommend it. I think you should build good habits that they're going to need later, players are going to need. And when they're 14 and 15, start going through puberty and those muscles start solidifying, they start getting some muscle mass, especially like in high school, they need this. This is very important because the more muscle mass, the more it's going to need to warm up typically, right? A 4-year-old can roll out of bed and pretty much do somersaults and all sorts of things and strain their neck 6 ways from Sunday, and they just keep going. That happens to one of us, we're going to be wearing one of those neck braces for 2 months. Now, part 3 of this episode, this topic came from a coach, and it was from, and you know who you are, said, curious to what your thoughts are and what the keys you think would be or need to be taught to kids to successfully graduate from a 45-60 foot diamond to a 50-70 or a 60-90. Now, here's what I recommend. There's a couple things. Definitely recommend mixing some practices, whether they're side practices or with the entire team on those bigger fields. This is something something that I don't think coaches sometimes look at, but why not go practice on that bigger field towards the end of the season, towards the end of the year? This is something to keep in mind. You could also use it now. Why not take your team? If you know you have a bunch of 12Us and you know they're going to jump up to an 80-foot or a 70-foot bases, why not take them for a few practices towards the end of the year? Why wait until they need to go play their games on those? Why not give them a little taste of it? It's not going to mess them up big time. I wouldn't I wouldn't do all my practices on a bigger field because you're going to have some differences. You're going to have a little, there's going to be some issue. The throws, the angles of the throws especially are going to be a little different. The timing of the pitch is going to be a little different for your hitters. The distance for the mound is going to be a little different for the pitcher. So definitely want to keep that in mind. But why not do a couple practices to give them a little taste? If it does anything, it's going to give them a little confidence knowing when they step on that field the next year, especially if you're not coaching them the next year. When they get on a field with a new team, a new coach, they can go, oh, I've practiced on this field a few times. I've played on this field. Another thing is speed of the game. This goes back to everything we've talked about. Practice fast. Your kid should be, if you want to win more, you need to practice fast. You need to practice fast. Not all the time, but I talk about that 20-40-40 ratio. 20% slower, a little slightly slower than game speed, your actual game speed at your level. 40% about game speed. These would be like 40% of the reps, like ground balls and things like that, especially ground balls and even pitches. And 40% of ground balls and pitches in your batting practice, things like that, they need to be above your level. They need to be slightly above, depending on the player. If you got an elite player, step it up a whole standard deviation above the average velocity or average speed of that ground ball or pitch at your level. Jump it up. If it's a player that's already kind of shaky at your level, you don't really need to knock it up too much, but maybe slightly. This right here inherently is just going to get players ready for the next season because you're already going above and beyond. You should already be doing that. So a couple practices at those fields or with your kid, take them out there. Get them those reps, even though they're not there yet. If they are playing on the 45-60 and next year they're going to go to a bigger field, why not take them out on a Sunday, on a Saturday or something during the season or right after the season and get them out there and get them some reps on the bigger field. Typically it's longer throws, further pitches, longer distance for the mound and a different timing at the plate. Sometimes there's a different timing. Typically when kids graduate from, especially the good players, when they graduate up to a bigger field, that initial season typically going to need or require that they change their timing at the plate a little where they're letting that pitch travel a little longer before committing and getting to that swing. We're talking hundredths of a second here, but it does make a difference. Now, as the players fill into that field, then everything kind of starts becoming all relative and it starts evening out. When I was growing up, like a lot of you, Little League was 60-foot bases and then it went to 90-foot. So it went from 45-foot mounds to 60-foot mounds. You add 15 feet to a mound, you're talking literally 8 months later. Maybe it's fall ball and it's only 4 or 5 months later and now you just added 15 feet to the pitch. I just remember it was a big difference from the 45-foot mound for the hitters. I mean, the pitchers, of course, it's further. Their arm strength isn't quite there for the most part. But the hitters, they really had to wait a little bit because even the fastest pitcher on the 45-foot mound was not blowing it by people on the 60-foot mound, 60-foot, 6-inch mound. And the average to slower pitchers at the 45-foot mound on those 60-foot bases, well, man, oh man, you had to count to 5 before you swung that first year on the bigger diamond. Now, there's more of a phase now. They phased it up a little. I did not go from 45-60 straight to the 60-90. I went actually to pony. So I went my 13U and 14U, I played at the 80-foot bases. So it was a nice transition. I like that. So a lot of players are doing that. They're going 60-foot bases, then the 70, then the 80, then the 90. It's not a bad way to do it, but always be ahead, one season ahead when you're practicing, at least here and there. That's my recommendation on getting players ready to successfully graduate to that bigger field. Get them out there on it before they actually have to go out there and try out, or go out there, even worse, go out there and actually play games on that field or practice with a new team and try to show their skills. Get them out there beforehand. You can take them out there the year before. It's not going to screw them up. I just wouldn't do it a lot. I would do it here and there. I'd sprinkle it in, and definitely you should be with your batting practice velocity and your ground balls. That should always have a component of it where it's a tick up from where you're at now, from the level you're at now. All right, man, I love being here, talk shop all day with you guys, but I do really want this to be one of those, here's an efficient way to get this information to you. So we hit those things today. We're going to get into the fall coaching clinic on Thursday, set up for 5 Eastern time, 8 Pacific time, 7 Central time. And you can do the math here in the Mountain Time Zone here in Boise. It's going to be 6 p.m. start. Here's the thing. When you sign up, you are going to get access to the recording of it at a minimum. You're going to get access. If you come to it, you're also going to get access to the recording of it. If you don't show up, you'll get access to the recording. You can watch the entire thing and it'll be just for you. It's not going to be something I put out there on YouTube or Vimeo or put on the website just for whatever. It's going to be for the people that signed up for it. So I appreciate all of you that have already signed up. I'm looking forward to seeing you on there. We're going to do a 90-minute session with a 30-minute Q&A. Now, the 90-minute session, we're going to move through. We're going to keep it moving. I'm going to try to limit the questions only to clarifying questions. And then on the back end, we'll do a Q&A session. I'm going to show you a throwing routine that you should be putting in with your players. I'm going to show you exactly how those throws should look, a dynamic warm-up routine. I'm going to show you how I would break up a batting practice session efficiently and effectively with limited resources. I'm going to show you exactly the design of a ground ball drill that I think covers all the bases, no pun intended. I'm also going to show you a bonus drill in there too. I'm going to show you one of my favorite, most efficient but effective bonus drills, and that's going to be put in there. That's a little surprise bonus. And so looking forward to seeing you guys there this Thursday at the Fall Coaching Webinar. And until then, this has been Coach Bo. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your health. Take care of your families. Go out there. Take care of the baseball community by taking these techniques, these strategies, and making it a better place, making better players, making better people, winning more games. And I'll catch you on the flip side. Adios.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass. Take it to the field.